here to discuss this and some of his suggested disregard for the Constitution, his Deputy Press Secretary for the youth and conservative media, Raffi Williams. Good to see you. Good to see you, Raffi.
Always great to be on, John. Thanks for having me.
All right, so we hear that from President Obama. Of course, that's when he was a candidate. Now we hear the president talking about, and actually the White House, maybe more specifically, threatening to use executive orders specifically on immigration because Congress, specifically the House, couldn't pass a bill that the Senate could agree on. What's your take on where you think the president might go? How far?
Look, the president said long ago, I have a pen and a phone, and I'm going to use it. So he's blatantly ignoring the Constitution, the separation of powers here. So there's no telling where he's going to go. He just seems to be willing to do whatever he wants because he's done working with Congress and using the government as it's written out and built to be used. And this is really disturbing for Americans of all walks of life because we have to have faith that our government is going to be operated as it should be. You know, one of the lines I love from the Constitution is you have to take care that the law is going to be faithfully executed. And Obama, we've seen time and time again, has not done that. You look at the Obamacare mandate, you look at his executive overreach all the time. I mean, there were just since 2012, there have been 13 different Supreme Court cases that they've ruled unanimously against Obama. That's how
definitely. I think the Supreme Court is the most clear-cut example of the president being slapped down for executive overreach. In the meantime, we have the House Speaker filing that lawsuit, and the House could agree on that pretty easily. But what can that lawsuit accomplish that the Supreme Court case slapping the president down hasn't already done?
Well, I think you're holding Obama accountable. You're holding his feet to the fire here. And what you're saying is, look, as congressmen, as Congress as a whole, we understand that this country was designed to be operated with two or three branches of government. They were separate but equally powerful, and that he's trampling all over this, and something needs to be done to stop this. And so you're going to see the Supreme Court has 13 times ruled against Obama, and now the Congress is coming up and saying you've overreached as well. So you have two branches almost coming together and saying, look, you really have gone too far. You're overextending, and you're dividing the country in a way that's not healthy for us. You need to operate within the frameworks that's designed by the Constitution, and this just isn't happening right now. And you need to change, you need to fix it, and it's holding them accountable. It's also putting it in front of voters. It's telling Americans, look, we're not going to take this sitting down. We're going to stand up because this is wrong and it's an abuse of power. Now,
Raffi, some folks have criticized the GOP for that, what you just mentioned right there, that this lawsuit is really just a chance for these office holders to go back to their district and say, hey, look, I voted to sue the president, now vote for me.
Well, no, I think that there's a lot of meat to this lawsuit. There's a reason that all of Congress passed it because that's the way it had to be done based on precedent. But this lawsuit really is saying the president is supposed to faithfully execute the laws, and he isn't, so that's a problem. We need to address it. We need to go after it. It's not about the politics here, but it's about holding Obama accountable because that's what constituents want. Constituents want a president who isn't a fiat or a monarch, but is a president that works within the democratic republic we have here, and they're sick of him overrunning, overreaching, and so now they're liking the movement on the lawsuit because it shows that our Congress is willing to take action to find solutions to the problems that are hurting American people.
And for you, Raffi, what does a successful resolution to this lawsuit look like to you? Because in most likelihood, let's say it does go all the way to completion, President Obama will be long gone from office.
Well, it makes sure that everybody knows the history books can't be spun. It makes sure that we're holding people accountable and that future presidents know you can't run roughshod over the Congress. You have to work within the framework there, and that's what we're hoping to get out of here. It's going to make a message and send a message to Democrats that we can't have a monarchy here. This is a democratic republic.
All right, now, of course, there's another step. We could go beyond the lawsuit here, and that's talking about impeachment. And there's been a lot of back and forth between Democrats and Republicans as to who might benefit more from even using that word in the first place. But we heard that discussion, the I word, come up again from Congressman Steve King of Iowa during the Sunday talk shows today. Is that debate being talked about again based on the way Congress left on Friday?
Well, I don't think many people are talking about impeachment here. I think you see the Dems trying to use it to fundraise and it's part of their scare tactics. The Dems have nothing to run on in 2014. Their agenda has failed the American people way too many times to count. It's hard to point at anything that's going well in this country under Democratic leadership that's taken us south on foreign policy and domestically. You talk about Obamacare, the economy. People are still struggling here. So they have no plan to run on. They have no policies to run off of. So what they're trying to do instead is to scare their base out. They're constantly pointing to race issues. They're constantly saying that there's a war on women. They're constantly labeling now this impeachment drive. But none of this is actually happening. It's them trying to invent things because they have nothing concrete to run on and to work from. And they're afraid of the positive Republican agenda here that's going to produce more jobs. Look at the Keystone Pipeline that the Democrats continue to stand in the way of. Look at the 300+ bills that are sitting on Harry Reid's desk. He refuses to take action on.
But Raffi, now the White House was very excited about that 4% GDP growth in the last quarter. They are starting to talk a little bit more about the economy. Does that worry you and some folks at the RNC a little bit, that they at least have the data they can point to?
I mean, look, you can find any statistics to match what you want to say, but at the end of the day, Americans are feeling it in their pocketbooks. The middle class and lower class are still struggling right now. Working class families are hard up because this Obama economy has left them behind, and he's not doing anything to help them and put jobs and food on the table. And so this is going to be a really big problem for him. And he might want to pretend like, oh, everything's honky-dory, but real Americans know. And when I get out there and I talk to real Americans, they're saying they're hurting right now. They're really hurting financially. They're not having the savings they want. They're not making the investments in their residences that they want to make because of the Obama economy is holding everybody back and the wage growth is stagnant. And, they're going to talk about the GDP growth, but remember, first quarter, we actually took 2 percentage steps back.
That's true. That's true. We don't get too down into the weeds, but just raising that point. Raffi, hang tight real quick. We're going to bring in Howie Carr, who's also joining us, and we have discussed the prospect of the president issuing some sort of amnesty order to some 5 million illegal immigrants. Congressman Gutierrez mentioned the prospect of such. And Howie, do you think that this would actually be the impeachment that kind of for the Republicans here? If the president went forward with something of this magnitude, this would get out the vote for the GOP like nothing the party has seen before. Agree or disagree?
I agree. I think that I don't think it's going to help impeachment so much. It's just going to help a real tidal wave of Republicans being elected in November. I mean, look at even Al Franken in Minnesota is beginning to feel the footsteps behind him. This is a very bad situation for the Democrats if he does. There's 100 million people that are unemployed. They talk about all the new jobs that are created. These are all part-time jobs that are being created. Very few. Actually, I think they lost full-time jobs in the latest jobs report. This is not going to fool anybody. I mean, this is great for the cheerleaders and the pom-pom tossers on CNBC, but it's not fooling anybody who can't get a job, who's going around looking and is just having to work. I just got a ride in a Uber cab, a guy who's got a PhD in electrical engineering, and he's driving an Uber.
Well, I want to
hop in? Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Raffi. Hop in.
So and on Howie's point about the economy faltering. 50 out of the past 51 months, more Americans have given up looking for work than have gotten jobs. And that just shows you how terrible our economy is right now under the steward of Obama and Obamonomics. And people in my generation especially saw all their unemployment rates go up last month. And this is just another sign that the future of our country is being delayed because Obama's standing in the way.
All right, well, let's get back to this issue of...
under 30.
I'm sorry.
15% unemployment.
Yep.
Yeah,
under the age of 30.
It's really abysmal for young Americans right now. But that said, Raffi, one of your jobs is to try and recruit these folks into the party. We have this issue of illegal immigration. That's a huge issue if you look at the polling numbers. But what really is the GOP's best hope to get folks, in lieu of an executive order of amnesty, to get folks out to the poll?
Well, I think that you're going to see us doing the same thing we're doing right now, just touting our positive agenda that will provide jobs for the American people, while at the same time taking out roadblocks like the increased regulations, the unsecure tax structure, and Obamacare especially. These are things that are hurting people's pocketbooks, and people go to the midterm elections on pocketbook issues, and we're going to make sure we're focusing in on those.
All right. Well, Howie, we'll check back in with you in a second. Coming up a little bit later, we'll talk about the race in New Hampshire, the state next to your home state of Massachusetts. And Raffi, before we go, about 30 seconds left. The RNC, of course, has in the Growth and Opportunity Project document there reference to comprehensive immigration reform. Any plans to remove that or backtrack on that language?
Well, not that I've seen, but look, we all agree that the immigration system in our country is not working, and we need to put border security first. And that's what we really stand behind. That's what we believe here. This is not any call for amnesty in the slightest. We think that we need to have border security first, e-verify, and that's what we're talking about there.
All right, fair enough. RNC Deputy Communications Director Raffi Williams, Howie Carr. Great to have you both with us. And Howie, we'll talk to you more about some politics going on in New England in just a few moments. All right, much more ahead here on America's Forum, guys, as we roll on. We're going to talk to Pat Buchanan coming up a little bit later in the show about the prospect of this amnesty executive order coming from the White House. What would Pat Buchanan say? Of course, he advised Presidents Reagan and Nixon on some issues. We'll get his take on all this, why he calls it Obamnesty, and what it could mean for the 2014 and 2016 presidential and midterm elections coming up. More ahead here on America's Forum. John Bachman in for JD today. We'll be right back after this.